Good evening. Welcome to the October 23rd, 2017 Troy City Council meeting. We are pleased this evening to have Pastor Vince Messina from Woodside Bible Church with us to lead us in the invocation. And then we have a special treat. Brownie Troop 75834 from Hill Elementary will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after the invocation. Please stand for the invocation.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Let's pray together. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you for the measure of health that's ours by your grace. Thank you for this wonderful city of Troy that we have to be able to live in it and work in it. We thank you so much for this council, our mayor, city leaders that are here. We ask that you give them wisdom and discernment as they transact the business of the evening. Pray, Father, that you would watch over those of our first responders, our police department, our fire department, EMS. Father, thank you so much for their serving of the community. And Lord, we would just pray that this evening ultimately would be an honor and a glory to you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Now, if we could have Brownie Troop 75834 from Hill Elementary to come forward and lead us in the pledge, please. Hi, girls.
Hi.
Are we ready?
Yes, I think.
Somebody squeezing me. No.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's the best one yet. Thank you. The Troy City Council meeting is now called to order. The roll call. Ms. Stewart.
Mayor Slater.
Here.
Councilmember Abraham.
Here.
Councilmember Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Henderson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Here.
Councilmember McCowan.
Here.
Councilmember Pennington.
Here.
All present. First on the agenda are certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have 3 this evening. First, C1, a painting created by Hill Elementary School 3rd graders, and I'd like to bring forward Cindy Stewart, Community Affairs Director, to make the introductions. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. We were approached by Kim Etheridge. She's a Troy resident, and they did a project after the city passed the Woodlands Protection Ordinance. They were very, very happy. So she and the teachers at Hill Elementary, the 3rd graders, got together to do a project, and they want to present it to City Council.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and thanks for having us. My name is Kim Etheridge. I am a parent of one of these lovely brownies in Troop 75834. I also do I'm the parent liaison for what's called the Green Schools Program, which is an Oakland County initiative to advocate environmental and natural protection learning in our school. And as part of our point system, we are, it's awarded by points. We try to get the highest or evergreen status each year. So one of the points on the list is to teach the kids about a current environmental issue in your neighborhood or in your city. And at the time, you guys were contemplating passing the Troy Woodland Ordinance. So that was what we used to teach our students about environmental laws and why they're important. And while we were talking about it, we got an idea that we would do a painting that would kind of talk about how important it is. And I am happy to say that while we were doing this, the ordinance passed. And so what I wanted to explain a little is how this came about. So you'll see the initials, and these are our lovely Girl Scouts down here. And then we also kind of passed this around at our school picnic, and the ones that don't have initials on them, the little thumbprints that represent leaves, those are all the parents and the teachers that decided that they also wanted to kind of put their little print on this artwork. And we also wrote on it, "To the City of Troy, thank you for passing a law to protect our trees and wildlife. From Hill Elementary." and this was in 2016. We had this a little while, and we figured it was high time to give it to you. One thing that I wanted to point out is that this was a collaboration, and I, on behalf of our parents and our troop and our school, we do thank you for passing this ordinance. We believe it gives a good thumbs up to a collaborative effort, and natural protection and resource protection is just that. Mother Nature and the environment does not have a voice, and so we chose to do this as our voice to thank you for recognizing that it does take a collaboration of everyone involved in environmental matters, and it's not always easy. And what we simply explained this to the kids was, well, you are planning for new homes for people, you should also remember about the homes for animals. And if we could urge you to just take that simple notion with you when you go forward with your woodland ordinance regulation, that'd be wonderful. And so I commend you on behalf of Hill Elementary and the girls, and thanks for the ordinance, and thanks for all you do for Troy.
Thank you very much. If you wouldn't mind, how about if the entire council comes down there and gets a picture with the Girl Scouts or the Brownie Troop and the picture? How about that?
You know, why don't you just hold it? Go ahead. Go ahead.
You got to scooch together. Come over this way, away from the. You go over right there. Yep. Look this way. Say trees. Trees. One more. Come on.
I think so.
That was really good.
That's what makes it all worthwhile when we do things like that. Next on the agenda, continuing with certificates of recognition and special presentations, C2 is a proclamation for America Recycles Day, and I'd like to make the presentation to Pam Brady, South Oakland County Resource Recovery. We do this annually, and Pam is the leader in this effort, and we always ask her to come forward and be recognized. I know she's going to say, this isn't about Pam, right?
I'm here. Okay, vertical.
Yes, that's good. Pam, on behalf of Troy City Council, it's really a privilege for me to present this proclamation, America Recycles 2017, and I'd like to read this into the record, Pam. Whereas the world has changed a lot in the past century, from individually packaged food servings to disposable diapers, more garbage is generated now than ever before. The average American discards 7.5 pounds of garbage every day. Our garbage, our solid waste stream, all goes to landfills where it's compacted and buried. And whereas to focus the nation's attention on the importance of recycling, businesses, industries, government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and individuals have joined together to celebrate America Recycles 2017 and are encouraging their employees, staff, customers, membership, and all citizens to pledge to buy more recycled content products starting today. And whereas participating in America Recycles 2017 is one way our citizens can help raise awareness about the need to reduce waste by reusing, recycling, and buying recycled products. And whereas the more we recycle, the less garbage winds up in our landfills and incineration plants. By reusing aluminum, paper, glass, plastics, and other materials, we can save production and energy costs and reduce by up to 75% the negative impacts that the extraction and processing of virgin materials has on the environment. Plastics made from precious and non-renewable petroleum and aluminum, which is mined from bauxite, are especially important to recycle. And whereas recycling helps protect our resources, our environment, and our quality of life. The entire loop, reduce, reuse, recycle, is completed when you buy products made from recycled material. And whereas from July 2016 to June 2017, the City of Troy recycled 5,091 tons of glass, paperboard, cardboard, newspaper, metal, tin, and plastic, and 9,580 tons of compost. That's pretty impressive. Whereas state and community leaders need to spread the word about the excellent programs they have established, the growth of markets for recyclable materials, and the importance of buying recycled products. So now therefore be it resolved that the City of Troy City Council hereby proclaims America Recycles 2017 in Troy, Michigan, and urges all Troy residents to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Be it further resolved that America Recycles 2017 is celebrated year-round to encourage people to recycle and buy products made from recycled materials. The theme of America Recycles 2017 is Keep America Beautiful. Recycle. Presented this 23rd day of October 2017 is signed by myself, all members of City Council. It's my honor to present this proclamation proclaiming America Recycles 2017. Pam, thank you, and thank you for what you do. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. I am Pam Brady. I have only 2 minutes to speak since it's a very busy council night, so I'll give you my good news in bullet points. SACRA is going single stream, which means that the recyclables we put to the curb will be clumped together in the truck, taken to the MRF, and then separated. We don't have to separate paper. The recycling center is being reconditioned to handle that and should be done by the end of November. Drop-off materials will be on hold until then, except for special times and places. It is important that we use our new carts. We are welcome to keep the old bins. I wash mine and I use it for storage. Or you can take the bins to the Sacra's MRF, 995 Coolidge Highway across from Myers for recycling. If you have to continue to use the bin for recycling, you may do so. Please do not put the recyclables into plastic bags in the cart. While that keeps the cart interior cleaner, it adds a step getting to the materials to be recycled. For the year ending June 30th, trash is up 1.5%, recycling is down 2%. For the recycling tonnage, Troy saved over $200,000. But we have to get our recycling numbers back up and hopefully higher. More is better. That's where the carts come in. Please note that all yard waste can be put into craft paper bags or marked cans and put to the curb on your regular garbage day until December 14th. That includes your Halloween pumpkins, corn stalks, straw bales, etc., when you are done with them. Or they can go into your home compost pile. If you have any questions, you can call Emily Frontera or Kirk Bovenseep at the Troy DPW at 248-524-3399. Remember, recycling reclaims our resources. It's not a fad, it's our future, and it was the children's futures. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you again, Pam. Next on the agenda is C3, is a proclamation to proclaim October 2017 as 1001 Inventions Month in the city of Troy. And I'd asked Ruba Simone, Executive Director of American Syrian Arab Cultural Association and members of the Troy Global Advisory Committee to please come forward. Hi, Ruba. How are you? Ruba, it's my privilege to present this proclamation, 1001 Inventions Month for October 2017. And once again, I'd like to read it into the record. Thank you for being here tonight.
Sure, thank you.
Whereas Detroit is only the 4th American city to host the award-winning international exhibition, 1001 Inventions, Untold Stories from a Golden Age of Innovation from October 7th, 2017 until January 7th, 2018. And whereas this is the first time in 5 years the traveling exhibition has made an appearance in the United States. And whereas the 1001 Inventions exhibition explores the legacy of scientific discovery and innovation during the golden age of Muslim civilization, beginning in the 7th century. This exhibition showcases the diverse spectrum of bold thinkers and new technologies that were produced by women and men in this multi-faith, multicultural civilization reaching from Spain to China during the period leading up to the European Renaissance. And whereas an exhibition such as the 1001 Inventions will help inspire young people to explore careers in STEM, particularly underrepresented communities. And whereas the designation of the month of October in Michigan to be the 1001 Inventions Month will not only commemorate the arrival of this celebrated exhibition, but encourage design thinking and innovation throughout the state to spark the next golden age of innovation in Michigan. The designation of 1001 Inventions Month will encourage Michigan residents to celebrate innovative thinking and spark future innovations across cultures and backgrounds. And whereas this is the first time in the exhibit's 11-year history that its appearance has been totally funded by a local community thanks to the Friends of 1001 Inventions Michigan. The Friends of 1001 Inventions Michigan selected the Michigan Science Center as a host location in order to aid in the revitalization of Detroit and encourage STEM learning. So now therefore be it resolved that the Troy City Council does hereby proclaim October 2017 as 1001 Inventions Month in the City of Troy. And be it further resolved that the City Council encourages students, teachers, and our residents to take advantage of the award-winning international exhibition 1001 Inventions, Untold Stories from a Golden Age of Innovation at the Michigan Science Center. Signed this 23rd day of October 2017 by myself and all members of City Council. Ruba, thank you so much for bringing this forward to us, and congratulations on this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Ruba.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank
Let me
you
get
very
a
much.
picture.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor. Actually, Mayor Slater said everything that I was going to say about the exhibition and how great it is. I just want to say how thankful I am on behalf of the Friends of the 1001 Invention, Michigan. I want to thank the council members, and I really hope that you guys take the chance and go visit the exhibition. It's an amazing exhibition. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That concludes proclamations and certificates of recognition. There are no carryover items this evening or public hearings, so we will move to public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. I don't see that anyone has signed up for that this evening. There are no postponed items, so we will move to regular business. I-1, our board and committee appointments. There are no appointments this evening by the mayor's position or city council. I-2 are mayoral nominations, and I would like to make 2 nominations this evening. I would like to nominate Lisa Bekagodsky and Rebecca Chamberlain-Krenga to the Global Troy Advisory Committee. These are reappointments.
Support.
Moved by the chair and supported by Councilman Pennington that we nominate Lisa Grodsky and Rebecca Chamberlain-Krenga to the Global Troy Advisory Committee for the terms that expire 7/31/2018. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Stewart?
Mayor Slater,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham,
Yes.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick,
Yes.
Councilmember McCowan,
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington.
Yes.
Motion passes. There are no city council nominations this evening, so we will move to I-3. There is no closed session request this evening. I-4 is a proposed revision to the massage ordinance, Chapter 9898A, and I will call upon City Attorney Lori Bloom.
And Mayor, I'm actually going to turn it over to our team, city administration, and I will let them introduce it. And they do have a very short PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Slater, Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
Could you use the
council
microphone,
members.
please?
Yes, sir. And staff, good evening. Thank you for allowing us to present this to you. Sue Reister, Sergeant Nate Gobler, and myself, amongst others, have been working on revising the massage ordinance that we have before council tonight. From the legal department's position, recently state law has changed where we are precluded from regulating and licensing individual massage, well, we can regulate them, but we can't require them to be licensed through the city. Individual massage massage therapists. This doesn't mean that we can't regulate massage facilities and license them, but we are no longer allowed to license individuals who work in the facility. So in making these changes to the ordinance so that we're up to date with the state law and in compliance with state law, we worked together with the police department and the city clerk's office, and it was brought to our attention that there were some concerns with the police department as it related to enforcing the ordinance and keeping the city safe. So we also made some proposed changes to the ordinance tonight for council to consider that will help the police department better protect the city and keep the city safe from illegitimate massage businesses. And with that, I will have Sergeant Kohler further explain.
I'm assigned to the Directed Patrol Unit, and one of our responsibilities is we do compliance checks. We have been checking the massage facilities. I've been with the Directed Patrol Unit for the last 3 years, so we've checked them over the last 3 years. Typically, it's an annual thing, but based on the number of tips we get, kind of dictates how often we go into the massage facilities. What we've been noticing during our compliance inspections, number one, we've been getting an increased amount of tips from our citizens, registered tips to our department. And additionally, we've been getting reports from Citizens on Patrol, part of the Citizens Police Academy, other emails directly to me or directly to Community Services regarding some small portion of the facilities in the city of Troy. These are the same facilities that when we go in for inspections, we were finding that they were not quite in compliance with I should change the wording. They were in compliance with the ordinance as it stood. However, there were some concerns of how some of the facilities were operating versus some of the, I guess, chain facilities were operating also. So some of the issues that we had with the ordinance were pertaining to unlicensed massage therapists that were operating inside the facilities. Typically, when we go in for the inspections, if there were any massage therapists that were conducting the massages in rooms, we would interview them, ask them to produce their license required by the state. We've gone into facilities, certain facilities, and they've not been able to do that. Unfortunately, under the current city ordinance, our only repercussion is to serve them with a civil infraction violation. There's nothing more significant than that for performing massages without a license. And another current issue is we'll go into these facilities and there's several employees that work there, and there's no definition in the ordinance for what these employees do. So there could be someone that identifies themselves as a manager, there could be someone who identifies themselves as a massage therapist, there could be someone who identifies themselves as an assistant in the facility, and we're not able to differentiate because it's up to someone who's a management or authority saying, well, this person does this and this person does this. And it's difficult when we see one of these people coming out of a massage room where there is a client and they say, that's not a massage therapist, they were just restocking the towels. So it's hard for us to differentiate who actually has to be licensed and who does not, and who has the authority to enter a room when there's a client in there. So we worked with the city attorney's office to do some revisions. One of the revisions that was proposed that all the employees that work in the facility should submit to a background check through the police department using the iChat system through the Michigan State Police. The other one was requiring facilities to keep a log of what their employees do. So if each employee, as they work that day, they should have a registration of what that employee's responsibilities are for the day. We also clarified some language regarding their ability to refuse inspection. So if we were to come to a facility and they were to deny us access to the facility, there's now some specific language in there saying that that could lead to a suspension of their license. Then we clarified regarding the if there's unlawful acts that are performed at the facility while we're doing our inspections, we observe the unlawful acts, this could lead to suspension of their license also. One of the things that was also addressed was work attire. We've gone into some of the facilities where their work attire is very lax. There was some clarification to the regarding the lower half of the body, and the massage therapist should be wearing full pants that are not see-through. Again, this was regarding some of the things that we're finding at some of the facilities in the city. Our goal of this was to bring up some of the performance or correct some of the issues that we thought could lead to illicit activities that were going on at some of the facilities.
Good evening, Mayor
Good evening.
and Council. My name is Sue Easter, and I work in the clerk's office, and I process the applications for the massage facilities that come in. Right now, we have a $500 per applicant owner. We want to change it to $700 per facility. We don't have a maximum number of licenses, but we right now have 18 massage licenses, and we'd like to cap it at that. Right now, employees are listed on the applications. They're not listed, but just the therapists, and we are making revisions to our applications to add another page to have all employees put their information on that, so we know how many people are actually working in the facility and what their jobs are. Right now, we have reference letters that we would like to have notarized, which we offer in our office, so we know that that's the person that's actually writing the letter. So those are some of the changes for the application.
Thank you.
Is there any questions from council as it relates to some of the amendments that were made to the ordinance that any of us could answer for you this evening?
Any questions from council? Councilman Baker?
A quick question just came up. What is the rationale behind limiting it to 18 massage licenses? Was there an issue with too many facilities, or is that what the issue is?
Yes, we're finding that there's a lot of facilities in Troy, and it's hard to, once you get a lot of them, to regulate them and to keep a good strong hold and make sure that these facilities are on the up and up. So based on, we did meet with the planning department and figure out how many square miles were zoned for commercial in the city, and we came up with kind of a number that we thought right now with 18 facilities is something that we can manage, but once it gets much more above 18, we're going to have a hard time regulating these and ensuring that they're complying with our ordinance.
Councilman Pennington?
18 sounds like a big number to me. How many do we have now?
We have 18 right now.
All right.
Councilman Henderson?
Item 3 there, all employees and therapists must be listed on the application and provide a copy of identification, but 3 months in, there might be turnover. Is there a requirement then that they come in and re-register new employees? Or
yes, one of the revisions to the ordinance requires that the facility send in the updated information for new employees within 10 days of their hire date. So that way we have an updated list of who's employed there, and we can do the required checks to make sure that these people are people that we want working in these facilities, and it also puts an obligation on them to report that, and if they don't, it would be a violation of our ordinance and could amount to a suspension of their license.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
I'm assuming an answer to this question, but I should ask it outright. Several months ago, I think both Councilman McCowan and I had separate citizen reports of questionable behavior they were seeing. And there were issues. There was an issue at both facilities. What you've done here, does that help get our arms around preventing that and help us be more proactive?
That's the idea behind it, based on, if you want to further elaborate on that, but.
Sure. Based on what we were seeing, that's how we catered some of these changes to the ordinance to directly give us some control over that. more like an administrative type control that we can try to get suspensions or some sort of action to, if it is a violation that is a continual thing, as we see at some of these facilities, that we continue to issue the violations if the behavior continues to that point where a suspension or revocation of the license might be appropriate.
Councilman Pennington?
So right now, someone working in one of these facilities could have like a prostitution background and you wouldn't know about it, and so we want to be able to check all the backgrounds of all the employees? That's the object here?
That's correct. I believe the owners of the facilities are the only ones that are subject to a criminal background check at this point.
Great, thank you.
Councilman Henderson?
Of the 18 facilities that we know about, are they all in commercial buildings, or are some working out of homes, or, I mean, what's your feel?
They're all in the buildings.
All in commercial buildings, okay.
Any questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody like to move the resolution? Councilwoman Abraham?
I'll move I-4, proposed revisions to massage ordinance, Chapter 98A, as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Abraham, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick, that we approve I-4, which is the proposed revisions to massage ordinance, Chapter 98A, as printed in the agenda packet. Further discussion?
Mayor?
City
There's
Attorney
also a proposed revision to Chapter 60, and if you're intending to do those separate, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that it didn't get forgotten.
Was that the intent, Councilwoman Abraham, is to
Yes.
do them both? Thank you. And support?
Support.
Thank you. The vote, Ms. Stewart?
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember McCowen?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes. Motion passes. Next is the consent agenda. Any council member wish to pull a consent agenda item this evening? Councilman Henderson.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support. Moved by Councilman Henderson, supported by Councilman McCowen, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as presented in the agenda packet. Discussion? The vote, Ms. Stewart.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
Yes.
Councilmember McCowen?
Yes.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yes.
Mayor Slater?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion passes. If you were here on a consent agenda item this evening, they've all been approved. Next are memorandums and future council agenda items. K2, memorandum is an announcement to amend the Troy City Code in Chapter 93, Fire Prevention, and Chapter 60, Fees and Bonds Required. Just as an informational, that will be on the next City Council agenda as an item. Next is public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. I see several have signed up this evening to speak. Please make sure that you've read the agenda packet that deals with the rules as it pertains to public comment. You will be allotted 3 minutes. The green light will indicate your 3 minutes starts. The yellow light will come on when you have 1 minute left of your 3 minutes. Please try to start to wrap up at that time, and then when the red light comes on, your time will expire. So I will first call on Steve Taggy, Troy resident, who wishes to speak this evening. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, sir. City Council, thank you for having me. And you got my name right, so I'm quite impressed. Okay, so as I said, I'm Steve Taggy. I'm the former president of the Troy Youth Football Association, which most of you know is the Troy Cowboys. So I wanted to talk tonight just concerning the charter amendment proposal that's coming up. As the Cowboys have had a pretty good relationship with the city for about 61 years now, I think. And I just think that this charter amendment potentially jeopardizes that. It, not just the Cowboys, but I think some of the agreements that are in place with other youth sports organizations. And as a nonprofit organization, having to deal with these, as a volunteer organization, dealing with these kind of things just adds another layer of complexity to what you're already doing. And there were periods, being the president, where I was ready to go back to Mosul to reduce my stress levels. So I just, we're already buried. It's a 365-day-a-year job being a board member. We've got so much to deal with already, whether it's angry parents, fundraising, recruiting, trying to solidify relationships with community people, getting you guys out to events, things like that we're always trying to do. And to have to add this in to where we're going to have to do information campaigns, potentially yard signs, other expenses, when we should be using those on improving our organization, improving the kids' football skills, the girls' cheerleading skills. So I guess my bottom line with this is I think we have elected all of you to make decisions for the city. I don't feel it's necessary for us as the citizens to have to constantly every year be dealing with the day-to-day running of the city. So I just wanted to put that out there as I just hope that the city of Troy understands that running all these organizations, it's a beautiful relationship we have with the city right now. And I just urge people to vote no, and you guys keep the responsibilities you have and let us keep going and keeping our lives as simple as they can be running these organizations. So, and that is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I'll call on Gerard Steiger, Troy resident, who wishes to speak this evening. Good evening.
Okay. Thanks for having me up here. Thank you, members of council. I wanted to talk briefly on the charter amendment. There was a city flyer that has gone out about the charter amendment, and it talks about the sale and lease of city parks. And it asks, does the charter need to be amended to protect city parks? And the answer is no. The city charter already requires voter approval to sell or lease any city park, and it references City Charter Section 12.1. If you look at City Charter Section 12.1, it says this: the city may not sell any park, cemetery, or any part thereof, except in accordance with restrictions placed thereon by statute. It doesn't mention anything about leasing. And statute can be changed without amending the city charter. In other words, without a vote of the people. So the city charter proposed amendment has found holes and gaps that are in the city charter currently because of the controversy over developing the Civic Center. And it would be a pretty dense development at the Civic Center. These holes and gaps would lead you to conclude, vote yes on the city charter amendment. Some people say, well, if you do that, you'd have to vote on a lot of small issues, like a baseball team using a baseball diamond or a soccer team using a soccer field. But the charter amendment says it would affect leases and sale and use of over 90 days. When kids use a field, they don't have the use of it for over 90 days, like when you rent a house. If you rent a house for 90 days, you have it the whole 90 days, not for a few hours a week. Those agreements would not be affected. And there are some items that just don't get considered. I live close to Big Beaver Road. If you try to get into your neighborhood during rush hour, it's impossible to make a left turn. The traffic is horrendous. If they put this big, dense development just north of Big Beaver, where the Civic Center property is, how will that affect traffic? It gets little, if any, mention. Really, the matter hasn't gotten the scrutiny it deserves because it doesn't have to go to a public vote. If you pass the charter amendment, it will have to go to a public vote. It's a well-designed, very simply worded charter amendment. It definitely deserves your support. And there are items that haven't been given attention to, including by the city. You should vote yes on the charter amendment. It is something reasonable. It takes time to make a decision on it. Please decide to vote yes. And members of council, I thank you for your attention and thank you for your courtesy. Thanks again.
Thank you. Next, I'll call on Aaron Green, Troy resident, who wishes to speak this evening. Good evening.
I would like to speak in opposition to the charter amendment. Recently, a letter went out to City Attorney Bloom, and I think most of us have received a copy of it. In that letter, there's an attached opinion that proposes an evergreen clause be added to avoid forcing the vote on existing agreements. First off, that would need to be added to every single existing agreement, individually, with the approval of both parties. Second, Second, that's only existing agreements. If you have any new agreements, that would still require them going to the vote, even if they have an evergreen clause added in them before they're signed. That's, again, that puts us in the same situation. If you add a yoga instructor, for example, that yoga instructor's agreement will need to go before. The previous speaker's comment that it's not in use for 90 days. It does not specify continuous use. It does not specify 24-hour ongoing use. It specifies use of any portion of any plot of a given size owned by the city. And that means that their use, if they are teaching classes for over a 90-day period, even in multiple sessions, that is covered by the amendment. That is not just a clear and plain language reading of the amendment. It is the majority legal opinion that has been presented by opponents of that amendment and by anybody who has read the amendment. There are very few who have a legal background who have supported it. If you look at the opposition, right now it's an extremely diverse coalition of people. Right now, the vast majority of yourselves, Marty Nolenberg, Doug Tietz, liberal activists, small government activists, large majority of the individual members of the school board, and to my knowledge, hopefully, the vast majority of our friends and neighbors are in opposition to this. That is because we look at this amendment and we see the danger that it can cause. We love this city. We may or may not be in favor of any potential changes to anything else. You can look at anything. You can look at, for the Civic Center, which is a red herring. But if you look at the Civic Center and anything proposed about it, form a green space coalition. That's something that David Hamilton has proposed. Look at having council debate it. Come to council and discuss. Talk to council. I know you've been very vocal in promoting that. But this amendment is dangerous. Please do not vote for it. Vote no.
Thank you. Next, I'll call on Brian Matthews, Troy resident. Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, I attended the Friends of the Troy Public Library event on October 15th regarding the Troy Charter Amendment ballot initiative. Those in favor of the amendment repeatedly made 2 points. Their first concerned the money spent by the city on the current Civic Center development proposal. They felt the residents hadn't been consulted prior to, and I quote, all that money being spent. In response, they put forward the charter amendment. They want to vote on any project before the city spends funds developing a proposal. On the surface, this sounds logical. However, consider this point. In order to put a proposed land use, sale, lease, or transfer on the ballot, the city needs to provide its residents with a cost-benefit analysis so that they can make an informed decision. One cannot simply put a development plan on the ballot without explaining what the project will cost and the revenues that the city will expect from it. To do less fails to meet the fiduciary standard that the mayor and the city council members took an oath to uphold. In other words, the costs already incurred by the city during this preliminary civic center development proposal would still be incurred if the charter amendment were to pass. All the charter amendment does is add the unnecessary costs of an election for each and every land use decision. The second point they referenced was the 2004 baseball stadium proposal and how the residents felt it was an ineffective use of city land. Once again, they intended this charter amendment to prevent such misuses of city property. However, I would point out that Troy does not have a baseball stadium because a process already exists that allows residents to voice their concerns. They did, and the city council voted down the proposal. If a process already exists where residents have their say, why do we need to change the city's charter? I believe the proposed extreme charter amendment, an amendment no city in the state has adopted, is bad for this city. It hamstrings the council's ability to govern. It adds unnecessary costs by forcing elections for hundreds of land use issues. It risks the city's AAA bond rating. And it undermines the foundation of our representative style of government. I urge everyone to vote no on the extreme charter amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I'll call on Robin Siegel, Troy resident who wishes to speak. Good evening.
Good evening. I just want to say that there's obviously a lot of confusion on this charter amendment. And it's apparent to me that the citizens of Troy would like a say in the matter, but people are afraid to vote for this charter amendment because of the issues that have been raised. And I don't know if it's possible for the city council to decide to have a referendum on the civic center development, and that would allow citizens to have a say in it without worrying about voting for this charter amendment and having all these other unintended consequences. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll call on April Church, Troy resident who wishes to speak. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is April Church. I'm a 17-year Troy resident. I'm an average citizen, average resident. I'm college educated. I hold 2 jobs. I vote and I volunteer. I don't become actively involved in politics unless it affects me. I'm getting involved with this one. I'm voting no on the charter amendment, and here's why. Like many other average citizens, here's what I know about city government. A AAA bond rating. That's like an A++ on a math test. Okay. When I call 911, the police and fire department come. On Thursday, the garbage is picked up from my driveway. If I Google the city of Troy, I can find the website. If I have issues in my neighborhood, all I have to do is email Paul Evans, and he takes care of it. Okay, this is really all I need to know. This is all I want to know. However, there is a group of intelligent, diverse, and energetic individuals who love this city and who want to ensure that the city grows, develops, and thrives. These are the people we elect to the city council. I have a right. No, I have an obligation to vote. I researched the candidates. I have personally spoken with, worked with, or talked with someone I trust about everyone on this council. I researched the proposals on the ballot beyond the propaganda I get in the mail. I'm part of the vetting and interviewing process to select people to fill the most important jobs in our city. I'm electing them to do the research and make the decisions that will benefit the city. By electing you, we bestow upon you our blessings to do the jobs to the best of your ability. I am appalled at this amendment. It has nothing to do with the Civic Center. It has nothing to do with green space. It has everything to do with negating my hard-earned right to allow the people I vote for make the decisions necessary to run the city. I do not want the average citizen to decide what to do with city property. I do not want the average citizen to decide which contracts to allow and which not to allow. If this amendment passes, crucial decisions on the operation of the city will be made by the average citizen. People who wait until they are in the ballot box to read the amendments and then vote like this. I've seen more yes signs than no signs, so I'm going to vote yes. I never use the library or the nature center or the historical museum, so why should I pay for that? This is not the way to run one of the safest and greatest cities in this country. This is a recipe to destroy the city. The city councils of Troy have a proud history of careful and sound decision-making. Every member of this council is approachable and willing to discuss issues honestly and factually with anyone. We all deserve to have our vote matter. The way we show the city how we want the future of Troy to look is to let the people we have elected to do their jobs without having their hands and feet bound together. Please join me in voting no on this charter amendment and let our city government work the way it always has and is intended to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Good timing. Next, I'll call on Ward Randall, Troy resident who wishes to speak. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Slater and council members. My name is Ward Randall. I'm a 12-year resident of the city of Troy, and I work in Troy as an attorney. I want to speak to the effect of the proposed charter amendment on one specific operating agreement that I wrote. As an officer and trustee of the Troy Historical Society, I prepared a draft of an operating agreement for us to operate and manage the Troy Historical Museum, which, as you know, is a city-owned property. After I submitted the draft to the city attorney's office, and we negotiated it, and we came up with a 23-page agreement, which I think works very well. Excuse me. The city attorney has stated that operating agreements generally will be adversely affected by the proposed charter amendment, and I want to state for the record that I'm in total agreement with her position on that. And the reason for it is that the proposed charter amendment prohibits the city from entering into an agreement for, among other things, use of certain city-owned land for more than 90 days. The title of our operating agreement is an agreement by and between the City of Troy and the Troy Historical Society for the use, operation, and management of the Troy Historic Village. Paragraph 2 is titled Use of City Property, in which it says that Troy will allow the Troy Historical Society the non-exclusive use of its property, commonly known as the Troy Historic Village. Paragraph 3 is very specific and says that Troy will allow the Troy Historical Society the non-exclusive use of its collections and assets located in the village premises, and also the non-exclusive use of its other village equipment and office furniture located on the village premises. So it's very clear to me, and I think to the city attorney, that if our agreement terminates, or we want to amend it before it terminates, that that would have to be submitted to the voters, because our agreement is subject to the charter amendment. So I see my time is about to expire. This language about use, I'm making an educated guess. I'm pretty sure it's in all the other 200 operating agreements as well. So I'm voting no on the charter amendment.
Thank you. Next, I'll call on Valina Allison, Troy resident who wishes to speak. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Slater and council members. Thank you for this opportunity this evening. As Mayor Slater said, my name is Valina Allison. I've been a 20-plus year resident of Troy. Absolutely fantastic place to live, work, and play, all 4 seasons of the year. And if you've watched the weather, we may get to experience all 4 of those seasons in the next week. So on July 9th, my husband and I were driving by the Troy Historical Museum. It was really busy. Lots of cars in the parking lot. It was a Sunday, so that was unusual. So we decided to pull in and check it out. and they were having a family fun day for residents in Troy in the Tri-County area, and it looked awesome. So we parked our car, we decided to walk in and check it out. We've been there several times, and it's always a really good family experience. As we entered, there was an elderly lady with a clipboard who looked a tad bit frantic, and she said, "Do you like your civic center? Do you like your aquatic center in Troy?" Of course, we said yes, right? We've spent a lot of time there. Our kids learn how to swim there. We have our annual homeowner association meetings there. I've done yoga there. It's a great place. It's a great place in Troy. And so she said that City Council was planning on demolishing it, and that if we didn't sign this petition, that they were going to put condos and retail in that space. Well, we were obviously very, very concerned, and my husband signed the proposal. He signed her petition. We went off, spent our day, or the rest of our afternoon, going through the buildings and checking it out and really having a nice time. But it really bothered me. So once I got home, I decided I was going to do my own research. So I hopped online, started talking to people that I know in Troy, really wanted to start learning about this proposal. And Troy's reputation, right? It's one of strong and capable management, good decision-making, fairness. So this amendment, if it passes, it could potentially cause extreme red tape. Over 200 organizations could be affected, and that's really not good for Troy or our people. No other city in the U.S. that I could find online has any type of this kind of amendment or a similar situation. And based on what I was reading, it doesn't appear that it's about any particular amendment to change the Civic Center or destroy it or anything like that. There's just a lot of potential unintended consequences, which you've already heard from my fellow residents this evening. So really, I just wanted to say, you know, July 9th, that day at the Troy Historical Society was still a great day, but I gotta wonder how many other good Troy residents were bamboozled and basically misled by that individual that was standing there asking us to sign her petition. So I will be voting no. I hope everyone else does too. Thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you. Next, I'll call upon John Kulish, Troy resident, who wishes to speak this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity. I come before this council to address the campaign literature I received from Mrs. Stein and Mr. Hauerlach about their proposed charter amendment. I'm sure all of you are like me. You're accustomed to the political puffery and the prevarications of practiced politicians. They scream crisis. They scream danger. They scream the sky is falling. They do this to justify their radical extreme actions. We're all used to that. No, my complaint is about the use of a very particular word, desecrating. They believe that this city council wants to, quote, desecrate public land. When I first read that, it bugged me. I've sat with this for some time now, and I've tried to understand why it bothers me. So I looked up the word. As with many of our words, it's from very old Latin. The original root means to make holy. But when you add the suffix de to it, it means to profane. So Mr. Hauerlach and Mrs. Stein believe that this building sits on holy ground. Who knew? I've been here for 46 years, and I don't recall a consecration ceremony. But I would suggest that there is something more holy than the land this building sits on, the truth. The truth is that they have proposed an amendment that puts upon the sacrificial altar many of those things that make this city a community. The Friends of Troy Seniors, the soccer and baseball leagues, the Troy Historic Village, the Nature Center, all are threatened by their actions. So let me educate Mr. Hauerlach and Mrs. Stein on a word, in my opinion, that doesn't get used enough today, duty. It comes from the ancient Latin to mean to owe. My duty is to stand up to their hysteria and lies and to speak the truth. They've proposed an amendment that will do profound damage to those things that protect us, that teach us, and that make us a community. Because I have a duty to the city of Troy, I will be voting no on this amendment and rejecting their radical ideas. I encourage everyone within the sound of my voice to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll call upon Robin Beltramini, Troy resident, who wishes to speak this evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, I too want to talk about the proposed charter amendment. And I need to tell you, when discussions started in July, I was a yes. I was a yes because I had seen the proposal from your consultants, which was far denser than anything that had been previously considered and rejected. And then the language came out, and I became a passionate no, because it does immediately impact, as John just said, the Historical Society, the Nature Center, which I live next door to, Friends of the Library. And I too got the letter, the legal opinion from the guy who wrote the amendment. I too got the letter where he said renewals, they're exempt. There is no language in that proposed amendment that says that renewals are exempt. A renewal by definition is a new contract. It has a beginning date and an ending date that is different than the first. He says that things are grandfathered. Nothing is grandfathered by the language in this amendment beyond its expiration date. So that says to me, and to every attorney I've talked to, if that contract ends between this November and next November, and this amendment passes, we as citizens lose that good or service that was covered in that agreement until a new one can be voted on by the people in November. And then there are the benign uses. Churches, we have fledgling churches that rent space in the community center from time to time. We have clubs and groups who meet on a monthly basis, and no, they don't have to be there for 90 days solid, but their agreement is either perpetual because it's a handshake, or it's an annual agreement. Those must be voted on because he used the generic use. So it covers any use for 90 days or more on a portion of 2 acres. So if you want to vote on the Civic Center, craft a new amendment. Vote no on this one and craft an amendment that just handles the Civic Center. But do not make the people do council's job. That really is what we elect you to do. So I encourage everybody to let you do your job and vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes those that have signed up this evening. Oh, there's one more. I'm sorry, I missed. Doug Teets, Troy resident, wishes to speak this evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Doug Teets, Oakland County Commissioner, and seldom do you hear one name in one evening that 2 people are spot on, and both Robins are spot on this evening. Because I got to tell you, if you vote yes or no on the charter amendment, one thing is for sure, it's not about the Civic Center. Brian Waddles, a proponent and leader of the Yes Committee, along with his cohorts, Martin Harlach and Jeannie Stein, they have all agreed on one thing. In fact, I asked Brian himself. I asked Brian in a public forum, I said, Brian, today, let's unify. Let's have an up or down vote on the Civic Center. And he said no. He said no, because we want to have a voice on every single piece of public land in this city. What does that mean? Well, Troy football boosters, the baseball boosters, the historic village, the nature center, all of them are in danger. So the citizen, if you're opposed to the Civic Center, if you have concerns like I do, this isn't the time to vote yes or yes. The time to vote no is now. Let's have a real proposal that deals with the charter amendment, that deals with the Civic Center proposal. A plain reading of the language provided by this committee, who had a Saginaw attorney write their language, a plain reading, and I'm not talking about some lawyer reading. I'm talking about a reading of a halfway educated person in the city of Troy, and there's lots of educated people in our city. You look at it and you say, this is the wrong deal. And even when provided the opportunity, this committee has no interest in trying to actually have a dialogue about the Civic Center, because they want to grab a hold of control of all of our nonprofits. Final point is this. If you have concerns about big government, and you're concerned that, hey, this is, we don't want our city to grow and hire new employees, voting no is the only way to go. I couldn't have written something that would be more effective in growing the city because this will attack privatization. This will attack all the cost-saving measures we've had over the years, things like privatizing our building department, privatizing our golf courses, things like privatizing management of the nature center and historical village. That's all under attack by this charter amendment. And that's a concerning thing for those of us that believe in small government and want to keep things lean so we can actually spend money on the things that matter in our city. So the right vote is a no vote. The optimistic, hopeful vote is a no vote. And if you want to go back and let the citizens have a vote on whether to develop a civic center, that's another day. But now the answer is no. Thank you.
Thank you. Now that does conclude those that have signed up to speak on public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Now is an opportunity for City Council, City Administration to respond to any public comment this evening. Anyone wish to? Councilman McCowan? Anyone else wish to speak this evening in response? Councilwoman Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe it was Winston Churchill that said, lies can run halfway around the world before the truth can put their pants on. And I couldn't help but think of that quote when I think about what's going on with this charter amendment. I keep hearing the same untruths being spoken, that this charter amendment is about the Civic Center. It is not. It is an untruth that's being told so that good-minded citizens will vote yes. The impacts are so much more profound. The obtuse language in the charter amendment opens the door to extremely inefficient government. It leads to putting our AAA bond rating at risk. And if you like your taxes low and your services from the government high, this is the exact opposite thing that you should be voting for. I'm also hearing the same untruth of, well, just open up the contract, insert an evergreen clause. It's not that simple. If you've ever been involved in a contract, and I think every adult over the age of 18 has been because you've rented an apartment or gotten a cell phone, all these are contracts. You can't just march up to your landlord and say, excuse me, I'd like to change the terms on my terms. You open up that contract, they can actually ask for some conditions of their own. It's not that simple. But of course, that's what the yes side would want you to think. It's just that easy. It's not a big deal. We can fix it later. It's not that simple, folks. It's never been about the Civic Center, and you've heard Mr. Teets just say that. And it resonates, what Ms. Siegel said resonates with me. There is a lot of confusion. There's a lot of folks that do think that this is about the Civic Center. It's not. It's about the use of civic property. Whether you're the Troy Cowboys, the Friends of the Troy Public Library, Friends of Troy Seniors, Meals on Wheels, they all have agreements with the city, and all of them are at risk. Something Ms. Church said also resonated with me. She's got 2 full-time jobs. She's a mom. She volunteers. When is she going to have time to research every ballot proposal that's going to come forward? This is ridiculous that we're asking our citizens to do this. There's a reason why you have a representative government. It's so that you don't have to do this, that you can put that burden on your elected officials. And we all go into it with our eyes open. I don't consider it a burden. I consider it a privilege. It's service to my community, the community that I've been a part of for 41 years. I find it troubling that there's going to be a committee of, I don't know, 50,000 voters or so that's going to have to vote and be knowledgeable about every single contract. This is not government at its finest. This is not doing government the best. That is what Troy is known for. It's our tagline, doing government the best. And this just handcuffs us, folks. This puts a burden on us that puts our AAA bond rating at risk, and it's the beginning, it would be the beginning of a very bad time. I view this charter amendment as salt that's being sown into the earth, and people still expect a rich harvest. Well, that's not going to happen. Between this potential charter amendment and the charter amendment that put a cap on millages, it's getting harder and harder to maintain our AAA bond rating. If this passes, I don't know how we can possibly maintain our AAA bond rating when our revenue streams are going to become unstable. And I will remind folks, the reason that the revenue streams have become that much more important is because we do have a millage cap. A millage cap by charter amendment by the same group that's purporting this one and supporting this one. We're all busy people. We can't spend the hours to do all the history behind every charter amendment. And to expect people to do this every November is just absurd. I will be voting no on this extreme charter amendment. I hope everyone else does too.
Thank you. Councilman Henderson?
One thing that is kind of glaring in this whole thing is we've been talking about the Civic Center project for easily a year and a half now, and it surprises me that it was a surprise in July by the group of people that put this charter amendment together. We've been on TV, we've done retreats, we were in the newspaper when we spent the money to hire somebody to take a look at it and see what could be done with the property. And even past councils have talked about, what can be done with the Civic Center property. It's 100 acres of property. So the question becomes, we really have three options. Leave it alone with blacktop parking lots with weeds growing through it, and not truly green space, although it's not built out. Or we put the project that was laid out to us by the Gibbs Company and proceed that way, or we do some sort of a hybrid that maybe incorporates some of the process and the items in the project that Mr. Waddles brought our attention to. We could do any of that. The one thing that I know is that of the 7 people on this council, even the city management and Mr. Gibbs, not one of us can look at the project that was presented to us and see every single thing on there and say, yeah, I love every piece of that. Not one of us can do that. We all have some problem with some function of it. But we've been looking at it, we've been doing our due diligence, and Mr. Matthews puts it properly. If we want to put something on a ballot for people to give it an up and down vote, I don't have an objection to that. The question becomes, what do we put, what does that question look like? And how do we get 50,000 voters in the city of Troy to understand what that question is, and are they just voting for status quo on the property, or are we voting for some hybrid of the project that exists? So we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we've done a lot of work behind us. And what this group of people did is they stopped the progress that we were undertaking, trying to get some of the answers that would be required if we were to put this on a ballot. So vote no on this and allow us the opportunity to do what you elected us to do, each and every one of us, to keep pursuing at least the investigative process in this project. And at the end of the day, trust us that we will listen to the people. We've done it before. We'll do it again. It's our responsibility and our obligation to do that. And let us make a decision. And that decision might be to do nothing and scrap this whole idea. It might be to fine-tune it and, present something else. But at the end of the day, when we present something else and when we do put something out in front of the people, it will be well thought out and on paper, and everybody will be able to understand an up and down vote.
Thank you. Councilman McCowan?
This past weekend was very beautiful. I was actually out knocking doors on Saturday in Emerald Lakes, and I came to this one house, and it was an elderly gentleman who was getting out of his car, and I walked up to him and I said, you have a minute to talk? And he said, what do you want? And I said, well, I'm running for city council. And he goes, oh God. And we talked for probably 15 to 20 minutes, and among other things, I had literature for the charter amendment, and he used some colorful terminology, but essentially implied that the city council botched this, and we made this be on the ballot. And we debated the Civic Center back and forth for a good 10 minutes, and at the end of the conversation, regarding the merits of developing the Civic Center, and at the end I said, okay, and guess what? That's not what the charter amendment is about. And I pulled out my phone, I was just looking for it now, I pulled out my phone and I read the language of the charter amendment. And I said, this is where we are in the process. We were, as Councilman Henderson has said before, we were at a point of thinking about it. There wasn't a proposal to bring forward. Again, several other members have said this throughout the past several months, and I agree with it. If we want to vote on the Civic Center property, let's vote on it, that's fine. That's not what this vote is. And that's why I'm urging all of you to vote no on November 7th.
Thank you. Councilman Pennington?
Thank you, Mayor. So there's a little election coming up in a couple weeks. And I'm up for re-election. But this election is not about who sits at City Council. It's not about me. It's not about any of us that sit up here. It is a little bit, but what it's mainly about is a charter amendment proposal. I spoke 2 weeks ago at length of what I thought about it and what I think it'll affect. But it comes down to what you get with a yes vote and what you get with a no vote. So with a yes vote, you are going to get, in my opinion, an affected AAA bond rating, higher taxes, and lower property values. You're also going to get chaos here at the City Hall. What you're going to get with the no vote is you're going to get a say on the Civic Center property. We have heard from the people, and we will continue to listen. And that's what you'll get with the no vote.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick?
I think it was Ms. Siegel who said, can you just put this on the ballot? I'd be happy to put something on the ballot when we have enough information about what it is we want the input from the residents to include. Right now, to just say, should we or should we not do something on the Civic Center, begs the question, well, what are you thinking you're going to do? How much money will it cost? What will this look like? Who would be involved? We didn't get to the point, we never even got to the point in the process where we could say, okay, now, here's where we are, and we should give the residents a chance to have a voice. We were undermined in our work. We were completely undermined. And several of the people involved in the process of bringing this ballot language forward know full well how to reach each of us, how to have a conversation with us. We reach out to them. They know how to talk to our attorney. They know how to get input. That did not happen with me. And I guess as people criticize us for letting this happen, it's your fault, council, for letting this happen. We were blindsided by it. And we spoke up as they were gathering signatures to say, this could have unintended consequences. Please be careful what you're doing. Please don't do this. We spoke. I think every single one of us at a meeting in July expressing our concern and fear. I am sorry that this happened to the voters of the city of Troy. I've thought long and hard about, is it our fault? I will own that I feel that we could have done more communication. But I'm not sure that that would have made a difference with this group that came forward. We need to work together to manage this city well. We need our elected officials in Lansing to work with us. Senator Nolenberg has spoken out loud and clear to say this is not a good answer for the city. We need the residents to have our backs. Right now, we need the residents to have the backs of the city they live in and vote no. To ask the residents to have trust in elected officials in this day and age, it sounds like a ludicrous thing to do. And frankly, this council table could change. There could be different members after November 7th. But in my experience, when people find a seat at this table and they start working with the city staff that has the integrity that it does, the caring public servants that are in this city, the people you elect really work hard to do right by you. That's what we were trying to do as we entertained this thought, to take our fiduciary responsibility seriously, to take the very clear needs we have at the Civic Center on some of our properties, this building, the library, the aquatic center. We're taking those needs and the investments they're going to need into account and looking at what is the potential. We were thinking about it. And we were stopped. We were stopped by leaders in our community that didn't even take the chance to come talk to us and lock arms with us. I call for us all to vote no November 7th and then lock arms to have this conversation in a way that is logical, pragmatic, full of common sense, open minds. We all love green space. We don't want to desecrate the Civic Center. This is our home too. And we want to look at if there's a possibility to improve upon it to the benefit of the city. But it really isn't about the Civic Center. It's about a hot mess that can get created if this gets passed. And the residents will own it. If they vote yes, they're going to own a lot of decision-making that they don't really want to have to make. It's very critical to vote no. I firmly believe that. That's how I'll be voting. I will be voting yes for schools. No for the charter, yes for schools. That's our duty and our responsibility as a community.
Councilman Baker?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to all who spoke tonight. I hadn't actually planned on saying much tonight other than I'm going to be voting no on the charter amendment. I spoke for about 10 minutes at the last meeting as to why I'm voting no, and I'm not going to repeat myself because a lot of that was a rehash of what I'd said and others have said in the weeks prior. But a couple things struck me tonight. Certainly, I enjoy hearing from people who come up to the podium and speak their mind, and I obviously like it when the truth is told. That is a little easier to hear. But I still, maybe some don't agree with me up here, but I understand where the others come from. I don't necessarily agree with what they're saying, especially if it's not true, but I understand they've gotten hyped up on an issue and they're passionate about it too. I strongly disagree with them, and I wish that we could all speak with truth and facts and have a real conversation about it, because I think that makes a big difference. I have to admit, Councilman Henderson, I laughed when you said trust us, only because of what Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick just said. That's a very difficult thing to ask people to do in today's day and age. In fact, I remember going to the library for an information session on the Civic Center project, and one of the petition gatherers said to me, oh, yeah, I know, you're here from the government and you're here to help. And we kind of laughed about it because nobody thinks, the government is always right and helpful. But Councilman Henderson's right on one respect. I can think of three things this year alone that this council turned down because of citizen engagement. I voted no on the McClure Road apartment complex and the easy storage proposal for Long Lake. And I've taken a lot of heat from it from friends of mine who support development, as do I, from people who may be in a particular political party or not. But I chose to make those votes, and this council ultimately voted those down because people came to us and spoke at length at the podium. We reasoned things out, and that's how the vote turned out. So I think that you can trust this council and any future council, if that should be the case, to listen to your concerns and have a reasonable conversation up here at the podium. You know, there's McClure Road, there's easy storage, there was also the Middlesex Country Estates paving project this year. I mean, all of those things were very actively involved neighborhood communities, and there was frankly pressure from all people around the community for and against these projects. And we each made our decision, and the council came together in certain respects and turned those down because of what the community had said. So yes, trust us to listen to you. It's not as easy as a referendum for everything everybody said, Ms. Siegel, but you're right. It's confusing, and it would be easier if we were just debating that. Like Ms. Beltramini said, you know, she was a yes because she had concerns about this Civic Center project, but when she saw the language, she changed to a no. I think that's a lot of people, and I hope that resonates with people and haven't thought of it necessarily that way, but I'll say this one more time, as we have. You can be against the development of the Civic Center property and still be against this charter amendment. Those two don't go hand in hand. And I will say one other thing. I'll say two things about this, actually. There was not a lot of opposition to this project, the Civic Center project, early on. We didn't hear about it. Other than there was a gentleman who came to a couple meetings, and Councilwoman Abraham and Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick and I met with him in the conference room, and he said, I've heard about this, and I have these questions and concerns. He came back the second time and actually had a list, and we went through and listened to him and sat and talked about them, and I think he felt better at the end of it, and we said, you know, we're just thinking about this right now, but thank you for your input. That's what we're looking for. So that is an example of us listening to the community and having meetings with people. We're very accessible to that. And the other thing is, right before this charter amendment came to life, I did have a meeting with some people who expressed some concerns. One of them's in the room tonight. Others, I'm sure, are watching at home. And they said, you know, we have concerns about the Civic Center. Will you talk to us about it? I said, absolutely, I will. And I met them at Panera Bread during the normal business hours and took my time and listened to what they had to say, and as many of us would do. And, you know, I explained my position where I was, the concerns I had about any potential project. And they said, well, you know, we want to do something about it, but we don't know what. Would you do something for us? And I said, no, you know, I'm happy to hear your concerns now. Please, if you feel that there are issues with this project, come to the next council meeting and start having some public comment about it, because at that time we'd only heard from one person. And, you know, that was it. So my point of that story is we're accessible, we listen, we're happy to do that. After this amendment hopefully fails, we're going to be listening. This issue's not going to go away, so we are going to be available, and anybody on council is going to have to talk about it, and we will continue to do so. I've gone on longer than I intended to, but please vote no for the charter amendment in 2 weeks. It's for all of the hundreds of reasons we've all said all summer, all of you have said during public comment. It has too many unintended consequences and is bad for our city and not what makes this city great. We can still be a citizen engaged community, but this is not the way to do it. Vote no on November 7th, please. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the great things about going last is that most of the good stuff's already been talked about, and you can say, I agree with that. And I do agree with that tonight. I agree with the residents that came forward tonight, except for Mr. Stager. I'm not quite sure where he was going with his comments this evening, but I certainly appreciate the residents that came up this evening and spoke. They were all good points, and there's no sense for me to hash some of that. And I think council is covered most of the good points regarding voting no. The only thing that I want to talk about a little bit tonight, and this is the last opportunity that this council gets to speak before the election. So you're going to see probably some information from the opposition still. And one thing that seems to be consistent with their mailers is a letter from Gene Stein and Martin Howrelak. And they want to continue to point to their attorney's interpretation of the language in the ballot proposal, in the amendment. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because that's where they're putting all of their marbles. That's the only mailer that they've mailed, and it includes an interpretive letter from their attorney from Saginaw that admits that there will be consequences if this charter amendment is passed. He admits it in his letter. And then he goes on to explain what could be done. What they failed to do is give you the response letter from our city attorney that clearly explains that all of the issues that he proposes cannot be done. They're not realistic. But when you don't have the answers, what do? You make stuff up. You misrepresent. You deceive. So between now and November 7th, I look for that to continue to happen. So I want to talk a little bit about our city attorney Bloom's interpretation of the ballot language, the proposed charter amendment. We've all heard about that interpretation and the effects, the unintended consequences that are going to happen if this is passed. And I want you to know that I had a conversation with Lori, and this decision that was made, this interpretation by our city attorney was not done in a vacuum. She consulted with her staff of 4 lawyers. She consulted with outside counsel that has municipal law background. She consulted with the MML and their attorney, the Michigan Municipal League and their attorney. So this interpretation does not come from one person. This person, Lori Bloom, did her homework. Before she's going to come forward and interpret it language on a charter amendment, you better believe she's going to do her homework. Now let's talk about their lawyer from Saginaw that's never been here. He doesn't live here. City Attorney Bloom lives in the city of Troy. She's been with our city since, I believe, 1995, 92?
1995.
1995. She lives in our city. She has a vested interest in our city. Does Mr. Schmid from Saginaw have a vested interest in the city of Troy? I don't think so. And that's the best that they could do. Let's talk about City Attorney Bloom and what her background is. She's been the president of the Michigan Municipal Attorneys Organization. I could list you awards that she's had. She was the 2014 Women in the Law Award recipient. I could talk about all of the awards she has, all of the training that she has in municipal law, and why her decisions on this charter amendment are correct. She was backed up by Cranes recently, by an independent attorney that Cranes found that supported her position on the charter language. This attorney from Saginaw is not a municipal attorney. He's a general law practitioner. Do they have anyone that they've consulted outside of this attorney to back up the propaganda that they're mailing out to the Troy residents? Not one. They were asked at the meeting over here in the library who got together to to put this language together. They told us Frank Hawryluk, Brian Waddles, Tammy Zdzuski, and this attorney from Saginaw. Those are the four that got together to draft this language, we were told, at the library 2 weeks ago. No other attorneys, no municipal attorney. Their tactic today is to attack our city attorney and her interpretation of the charter amendment language. All you got to do is look at the facts. Look at what she did to come up with the conclusion that she came up with, that this is going to have the ramifications on our city. This is what's going to happen to our city. I believe 150% that she's accurate. And I hope you do too. Mr. Steiger said that there's holes and gaps in our charter. How ridiculous. Do you think there's holes and gaps in our charter, Lori?
No, Mayor.
I'll give you an opportunity to speak now if you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure that I can add much more other than just to also indicate that in addition to speaking with other attorneys, I have also spoke with the Attorney General's office, and George Alworth, who's been with the Attorney General's office for years and years and has done a multitude of charter amendments throughout his tenure with the Attorney General's office. And again, he agrees with the positions that were taken in the letter that is responsive to Mr. Schmid, the attorney from Saginaw. And Mayor, the only other thing that I was going to offer is I would offer a copy of the responsive letter. I know that that they were provided a copy of Mr. Schmid's letter, but I am happy to provide to anyone a copy of the response to that letter upon request.
Thank you. I give it to as many people as I can, and I would encourage anyone that wants to hear the other side of an attorney's opinion. When you get that letter from Mr. Schmid in the mail, there's a wonderful response letter from our city attorney who has a vested interest in the city of Troy. I would encourage you to reach out to any of us and we can provide that letter to you. I think it's either in the agenda packet from a couple of meetings ago. We could put it online, I think, if we wanted to. Is it online?
It is not currently online, Mayor. I'd be happy to give it to the city manager to put on the website.
I think it'd be great if it was. Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
I have on the website FAQs, frequently asked questions. Could we include, and in fairness, include his letter as well? Let's share up front what those letters, that communication back and forth between the two of you. That's what we're looking at very closely. And residents are voting on a very important, you change the charter, it's a big darn deal. And to be able to just look at that up front, it's very instructive and I think speaks for itself. So if we can do that, that'd be great.
Transparency is the best thing we can do. Thank you. That's a good suggestion. Please just be cautious when you get mailers in the mail. Always do your research. Always look at both sides before you come to a conclusion. Because many times you're not going to hear the whole truth from one side. They're going to misrepresent. They're going to try to deceive. And it's very, very hard sometimes to admit that you made a mistake. There are no council referrals this evening. We come to public comment from council. I don't know, is there anything nice to say tonight? Councilman Henderson.
So just before the meeting tonight, I was invited by the Arrows of Light Cub Scout troop from Costello Elementary, and I spent about a half hour talking with them about politics. They gave me a list of 11 questions before I showed up, so I just want to say thank you guys for inviting me, and the questions they presented me were, just to paraphrase a couple of them, they asked me about filibusters on city council. These are, I think, third grade, second, third, fourth graders. Do we have lobbyists? But the very first question was, what are all the vote no signs about? So I was given an opportunity to talk to them about charters and amendments and how all that works. And then, of course, appropriate for the evening, they asked me about what it costs for all the new recycle bins this summer. So they're highly intuitive and in tune with what's going on in the city of Troy. So again, thanks guys for allowing me the time to spend with you.
Thank you. Councilman Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank city staff for, and the community for a very successful Frightful 5K yesterday morning. And I want to thank whoever made it about 10 degrees warmer than it was last year. So it was a great event. And there were, I think, a couple hundred return runners who ran the first year and ran again the second year. I was one of those. And I think it's, there's so much going on with all the charter amendment talk. It's nice to see a community come together, and there wasn't any politics there. Well, there's always politics, but there was no overt politics happening at that event. It was just the community. It was people dressed in costume. It was people not dressed in costume, runners, walkers, families, all different kinds of things. And Kelly, I know you did a lot of work on that. I want to thank you, Kelly Molinar, for everything you did on behalf of the city, as well as the other staff in the city manager's office and DPW. You guys did a great job. And I will say, I've said it, this is my third time now, I'm embarrassed that I'm saying it 3 times. It is really cool to run down Big Beaver in the morning with no traffic on it. It's a very, very cool thing. So I took pictures, it's very fun. But thank you, Kelly, and everybody. And this is more of a public service announcement. As a reminder, there's an election in 2 weeks. Please vote. It is your civic duty, and these elections are off-year elections. There's no state races on there, no gubernatorial, no federal offices running. These are just the local city elections, and those often have pretty low turnout. This election especially is important to have a higher turnout. Presumably, I think that is going to be the best thing for the city. So get out and vote. It's not, you're not voting for president this time, but you're voting for something very important in your own backyard. So please remember to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McCowan.
Thank you, Mayor.
Hey, seniority counts.
And I guess that's warranted. Councilman Baker was not the only council member to return to the Frightful 5K this year. I, too, returned to the Frightful 5K. And just like last year, I talked a lot of smack beforehand. And unlike last year, Councilman Baker was in fantastic running shape. I was coming off of an injury. So I was hoping to win and not expecting to. And last year, I was soundly defeated. This year, as some of you may or may not know, Councilman Baker broke his foot in the winter and still has not fully recovered. And I have been running quite a bit over the past several months, so I was expecting to win this year. Unfortunately, that was not the case. So Councilman Baker did soundly defeat me fair and square, I'm much ashamed to say, but nonetheless, it was a great event. My pride has been wounded and stung, and I hope that I can return next year as a council member and finally beat Councilman Baker. I was closer this year, I will say that. City staff, all the volunteers who helped out, it was a great event. Some of the costumes are fantastic. I know there was a T-Rex who Councilwoman Mayor Pro Tem Hodorek extremely liked. And one of the other candidates dressed up as Hamilton, which is fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Councilman Baker's hair was perfect through the whole thing, I'm not ashamed to say. And it was, as always, it was a really great event. Great job. The weather was perfect. I did have a chance to educate Councilman Baker on Snapchat. He wasn't aware of this social media platform before, and I'm happy to say that I did teach him one thing yesterday. The other comment is this, so obviously 2 weeks from tomorrow is Election Day. Yeah, there's that. This week on, I think Wednesday, is the grand opening for Shake Shack at 888 Big Beaver. I'm very excited about this. Shake Shack is a great restaurant. It's a great addition to the city of Troy. I happened to bump into Mayor Barnett a while ago, and from Rochester Hills, that our little brother city, and told him I was very happy to hear that we were getting a Shake Shack. So that's coming this Wednesday. I'm very excited about that. That did get me thinking, though, about 888 Big Beaver. I know that we talked about it a while, shortly after I was appointed to council last year. And I was wondering if we could kind of get an update on 888, what's going on, kind of get some details on that. I don't know if city staff would be able to put together. It may be moot. I mean, this is the last city council meeting before the election, so you may not have the chance to talk to me again up here, but.
But we can always give a report that you could read anywhere, so. Are you asking for a development report? I mean, when you say report, we have a lot of thoughts going on in our head, right? You have the QDI program that we did as a result of this project. You've got the development and leases of different buildings that are yet to come, the parking structure. How about just all of that?
Yeah.
Great.
Perfect. Fine.
Any other council comments? Just quickly, every year I'm asked to go up to Beaumont Hospital to attend to their silent witness ceremony, and I'm wearing this pin today because this is a representation of a pin to honor those victims that have lost their lives to the act of domestic violence. And I was with Mayor Barnett from Rochester Hills, Mayor Taylor from Sterling Heights, and Mayor Dion from Utica, and we read the list of the victims from the past year. It's a really great ceremony that really is heartbreaking. Especially, they always have somebody that talks about what happened to them from domestic violence. And the good news is that they're a survivor. So there are many programs out there. Beaumont Hospital has a great program. I would just encourage anyone that is suffering through domestic violence to reach out. There's a lot of help out there before you get seriously hurt. So it was a great day to be up there, but very humbling, very humbling. I hesitated to bring this up, and I wasn't going to, but I think I'm going to. This is the last meeting before the election, and one of the four that was at the library a couple weeks ago, where the Friends of the Public Library put on a forum and gave an opportunity for the yes people to speak and the no people to speak. Tammy Dzinski wrote an email to the city attorney, and it was a pretty scathing email about our city council and how we lie. And she accused me of parking in a handicapped parking spot at the library, and said, what the heck, is he above the law that he can do something like that? And I am not above the law. My wife was with me, and my wife has a handicap permit. And if she would have looked at the mirror, she would have seen that hanging at the mirror. But no, she chose to write a letter, an accusation to the city attorney about me parking in a handicapped parking spot. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. And I bring that up only because she chose to write an email to the city attorney, and I think she was hoping that the city attorney would take that and run with it. So, these are the people, this is one of the people that's on the yes side.
Hey, Mayor,
Pardon?
can the coalition event, I'm thinking about Edna. Can we mention,
Oh, absolutely. Mayor Pro Tem Hoderick.
As you were talking, I'm reminded of the Troy Community Coalition and the fundraiser event that it had and this week, where people from all sides of the issue on the charter and from all ends of the political spectrum, and members from all over the community came together to raise money for an organization that helps us fight substance abuse in the community at all levels, from children to adults. And there's a contest every year. Two folks compete to raise the most funds, contributions toward the coalition, and whoever wins gets to wear a tiara. And Councilwoman Edna Abraham looked especially smashing Thursday evening with the tiara on, and I wanted to congratulate her. More importantly, and this is what she would say, because she didn't even bring it up tonight, congratulations to the Troy Community Coalition for an outstanding event. It was full of humor, and it's an example of, Mayor Slater, what's right in our community, and people who are working well together to lock arms with our police department, our judicial system, and civic leaders and members of the community to make our city safe. And thank you, Councilwoman Abraham, for looking so great in the tiara.
It's a worthy cause. A fantastic evening. In fact, I'm wearing the bracelet that I bought at the coalition dinner as part of the fundraiser. I can't stress how much damage substance abuse can do, not just to an individual, but to an entire family. It can break a family irrecoverably, and its impacts are profound for generations. The impact to the community from those broken families, from those heartbroken folks, it can't be underestimated. I think everyone knows someone that has a substance abuse problem. It's that prevalent, and it's only getting worse, and particularly with the opioid situation going on. So the Troy Community Coalition does profound work, noble work. Please support them. What they do to help prevent problems in our youth is amazing, and it's work that needs to be done. So I thank them for letting me vie for the tiara. It was wonderful to have a Disney princess moment, but the tiara did stay at San Marino. I did not take it home with me. It goes to next year's champion, but really the work that they do is incredible. Please support them.
Any other council comments? Any comments on the reports that were in the agenda packet this evening? I don't see that anyone has signed up for comments on items on or not on the agenda from members of the public outside of Troy. There is no closed session this evening. Thank you for coming tonight. We are adjourned.